This is CBC Vancouver News.
The Independent Investigations Office has been called in after a police-involved shooting at an elementary school in Surrey leaves one person dead. Also,
it's a big problem, yeah, of course, like how we will bring our groceries, how we will go to reach the hospital, and how we can go to shopping or everywhere else.
transit users in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island are left stranded after dozens of bus drivers walk off the job. Plus,
there has to be a significant increase in funding from all levels of government.
as shelters across the province see unprecedented demand, the SPCA releases a plan it hopes will alleviate some of that pressure. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. A serious multi-vehicle collision shut down the Sea to Sky Highway in both directions just north of Britannia Beach for several hours today. Police say the crash happened around 3:30 this afternoon. 3 vehicles were involved and several people were injured and taken to hospital. A witness tells CBC News he saw one vehicle struck the rock wall and another vehicle flip over. The highway has since reopened. One person has died following a police-involved shooting at an elementary school in Surrey's Clayton neighborhood. RCMP say around 2:40 this afternoon, they responded to reports of a person with a weapon in a schoolyard near 70th Avenue and 185th Street. Police say the person appeared to be in distress. The Independent Investigations Office says during the interaction, shots were fired by police. The person died from a gunshot injury. BC's police watchdog has now been called in to investigate. Abbotsford police say they have arrested a suspected impaired driver who allegedly hit and killed a man this morning.
The sole driver of the pickup truck and only occupant of that truck, a man in his 20s, was arrested at scene by our traffic enforcement unit for impaired driving. That individual remains in police custody as the investigation is unfolding here.
Police say the collision happened just before 8 o'clock on a rural stretch of Harris Road. When emergency responders arrived, they found a white Dodge pickup truck with significant damage after it hit a pedestrian and sheared off a power pole. Sergeant Walker says in January, officers caught 115 impaired drivers on Abbotsford roads alone, compared to 48 impaired drivers in January of last year. A recent string of break-ins in Surrey has left residents there feeling increasingly frustrated and demanding action. Since November, police say there have been 14 reported break-ins in the South Surrey and Crescent Beach neighborhoods, prompting a warning from police. Saurabh Sandhu has more.
That's where they crowbarred it in.
Nicole King has lived in South Surrey for more than 2 decades without worrying about safety. That changed last month when her home was broken into, the intruders smashing this glass door to gain entry.
My partner came home at around 8:30, and he walked in, and the house was just a complete mess.
By that time, King says the suspects had fled with several valuables, even managing to pry open this safe.
I had my own personal jewelry in my safe and that. Unfortunately, my sons had their dad that passed away, all his watches, which were obviously a sentimental value.
King says luckily no one was at home at the time of break and enter, but her daughter was supposed to be. A scary thought for the mother of 3.
She would have walked right into it.
And King's house wasn't the only one on her block to be targeted. Just a few minutes later, her neighbor's surveillance video shows 2 people allegedly breaking into the home next door. King is one of the several residents feeling frustrated and fearful after a string of break-ins over the past 4 months. Surrey Police Service say since November there have been 14 reported break-ins in the South Surrey and Crescent Beach neighborhoods. Police say they have typically occurred between 5 and 9 at night.
Where garages were the target, where outbuildings and unfinished structures were the target, where a certain MO was used in terms of like a sliding glass door, as opposed to what people might conventionally think of in terms of a break-in where they're forcing a door or forcing their way into the home.
McDonald says several arrests have been made and police continue to engage with residents through community meetings and crime prevention tips.
Using CCTV and trying to target harden people's residences and have neighbors work together to collectively protect the area.
King says since the break-ins, she started a neighborhood block watch, but wants to see more police patrolling the area. In the meantime, police suggest owners ensure home entry points are visible from the street and well lit, and any overgrown vegetation is trimmed back. And if you suspect a possible break-in, police say stay outside your home and call 911. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
Bus drivers in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island are on day 2 of job action. The strike is impacting more than a dozen routes in communities like Duncan, whereas Claire Palmer reports people who rely on transit say they're already feeling the impact.
Here, Kubra Panazadef and her family stands, waiting for a bus that will never arrive.
I heard the news yesterday. I don't know what we will do.
She says she's lived in Duncan for a year and relies on transit to get around.
I think it's a big problem, yeah, of course, like how we will bring our groceries, how we will go to reach the hospital, and how we can go to shopping or everywhere else, yeah. It's not that easy.
Nearby, dozens of transit operators have set up a picket line outside the bus depot. They say they're fighting for better wages, more breaks, and access to sanitary facilities during their shifts. Sean Boonpal is one of the striking bus drivers. He says workers like him want their wages on par with other transit operators on the island.
The issues stem off of the wage discrepancies between us and obviously BC Transit and Victoria, and these gaps have continued to grow over the years.
More than 50 workers in the Cowichan Valley walked off the job on Saturday after talks broke down with their employer, Transdev. The strike affects more than a dozen routes in communities like Duncan, Lake Cowichan, Chemainus, and Crofton, and service to and from Victoria. Michelle DeVries has been working the Cowichan routes for almost 3 years and says it's tough to live these days on what she's currently making.
For a one-bedroom apartment is $1,800, $1,900, $2,000 a month, right? So that's more than half of my income.
Volker Mann is 64 years old. He's worked as a bus driver for 16 years in the valley. He's ready to retire, but says that doesn't seem possible now.
I thought I could retire with dignity here, but there's no such thing or no such way because there is no proper pension plan. We don't have a municipal pension plan. We don't. There's no chance that I see in the near future of ever retiring. So I'm basically just working till I die.
Transdev says the two parties had a, quote, productive dialogue on Friday, but still remain far apart. The union says they'll be back at the bargaining table early this week. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Duncan.
More than 500 athletes are in BC this week for the 2025 Invictus Games. The event was founded by Prince Harry to honor injured service personnel and veterans. But as Yvette Bren shows us, this year is also about bridging geopolitical divides.
Even at the star-studded opening of the Invictus Games, a nod to the tensions between Canada and the U.S.
And look, I know our countries are having a moment right now, right?
BC's premier addressed the crowd, including the hundreds of wounded veterans from over 20 countries who will be competing.
Our soldiers have fought and died and cried and celebrated beside Americans for generations.
That unity hit a sour note this week, with many Canadian fans booing the U.S. national anthem at several sporting events. But at the Invictus Games, athletes say there's been none of that. Afghanistan veteran and former U.S. Marine Robert Dominguez says he leaves politics to the politicians.
I just let them deal with what they have to deal with, and we just continue to compete and support each other as athletes.
This 29-year-old, an ex-U.S. Air Force member, says he's been talking to Canadian athletes about Trump's tariffs and understands their frustration.
It's really saddening, honestly. It's really hard, especially on your guys' economy and your guys' just country. So, yeah, it just breaks my heart, honestly.
Some have lost limbs, others have lost friends. Veterans stress the spirit of these games is to persevere together.
They just embrace us. It's amazing, honestly. They're able to put aside everything else and still embrace us. Like, it's amazing.
Here, Canadians and Americans embrace, as they have long done.
Doesn't matter what the politicians say, because if you need us, you just say the word, USA.
The Invictus Games, a showcase of friendship in a shifting world. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Victoria residents have overwhelmingly voted in favor of a plan to replace the city's only pool, but it comes at a big price tag.
This is a project that the city knows it has to do. This is not something that we're going to be able to put off forever. And so it's not getting any cheaper.
On Saturday, the city was given the go-ahead to borrow almost $170 million for the new Crystal Pool and Wellness Center. Central Park North was the favored location for the new build, which means the existing 50-year-old pool will have to be torn down. The next step is the design stage. The project is expected to take 5 to 6 years. The BC SPCA has launched a new plan aimed at tackling the root causes of animal suffering. The organization says it's the first strategy released since the COVID-19 pandemic, a time when shelters across the province started to see a surge in vulnerable animals. And as Michelle Morton reports, that unprecedented demand continues to grow.
Baby. This puppy is one of many shelter animals in BC waiting for a forever home. The Langley Animal Protection Society says it has had to repeatedly operate beyond capacity, a challenge it's never had to deal with before the pandemic.
We used to have an owner return rate of probably around 98%. So that means 2% would stay and go into our adoption program, so we would not be able to find their owner. It's now closer to 70%, so it has taken a significant drop.
To help alleviate growing pressure on shelters across the province, the SPCA has launched a new 6-year plan to tackle the root causes of animal suffering, which includes working with local and provincial governments.
We know that so many animals come into our shelters that are surrendered. They do so because people simply have no options for those animals. They're moving from one location to the next, and pets aren't allowed in those particular rentals.
We have to work with social services and things like that to help make sure that animals are being spayed and neutered and staying with their homes, and that the people are safe. Because if the people are safe, then the animals are also safe.
The SPCA says it's also prioritizing farm and wild animals in the new plan by supporting wildlife rehabilitation organizations and farm animal welfare enforcement.
There has to be a significant increase in funding from all levels of government in order to be able to properly deal with animal protection and welfare, so that they could hire the needed bylaw officers or provincial constables to enforce the laws.
The Minister of Agriculture says the province is reviewing the SPCA's strategic plan to look at how it can continue to support the organization. The SPCA says in addition to the existing cost of living challenges, there's concern about looming U.S. tariffs.
One of the things that's already apparent is that the cost of pet food has risen dramatically in the last 5 years. If that continues to increase, with tariffs, it's definitely going to have a negative impact.
An added pressure for some pet owners and shelters. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, Donald Trump issues another dramatic tariff threat, this time on Canadian steel and aluminum. That's next. Stay with us. Donald Trump has issued another dramatic tariff threat. He says all steel imports will be slapped with a 25% duty. The CBC's Ashley Burke reports.
Just before midnight in Paris, returning to his hotel, the Prime Minister facing a new round of questions about Donald Trump's latest threats.
Are you going to retaliate? Is Canada a viable country?
This scene unfolding after the U.S. president repeatedly took aim at Canada again.
The Prime Minister said this weekend.
Trump asked point blank by Fox News about Justin Trudeau's concern that his threat to annex Canada is real.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state.
And on whether Canada did enough at the border to stop tariffs beyond the current 30-day pause.
Is that good enough?
No, it's not good enough.
So more needed in 30 days.
Something has to happen. It's not sustainable, and I'm changing it.
Then on Air Force One, an escalation. Trump said Canada shouldn't assume the U.S. will defend it.
We're making our country larger. We're making our country stronger. And in the case of Canada, if this should happen, I don't know how they can do it without us, because without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country.
And threatened to announce tariffs Monday on all steel and aluminum entering the states, including from Canada.
Everybody, steel.
Including Canada, Mexico,
yeah, any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum, too.
This while Trudeau met with French President Emmanuel Macron. Both leaders are facing threats from Trump, who set his sights on the European Union next.
They're going to want to share notes about what they expect to come from Trump and how they might respond. And, you know, they might want to talk about how they might coordinate with each other in extreme situations.
Trump is threatening to hit the EU with tariffs and pledging to take over Greenland, too.
We need Greenland because of national security, international security, world peace. And we'll have to do that. Canada, we'll see what happens with Canada.
A senior Canadian government official says the Prime Minister's office is aware of Trump's latest tariff threat against countries. But the government is waiting until it sees something official in writing before saying what Canada could do next. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Paris.
Domestically, the new Trump presidency has been 2 weeks of executive orders, and critics say that is threatening nothing less than the U.S. Constitution. The CBC's Caroline Bargout has the story.
Donald Trump is the first sitting U.S. president to attend a Super Bowl game, as Washington grapples with his extraordinary effort to seize control of government spending.
Kind of support that I needed.
In an exclusive interview with Fox News before the game, saying the Department of Education and the Pentagon were next.
We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse, but I campaigned on this, Brett.
Trump has authorized the world's richest man, Elon Musk, and his Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, to effectively shut down U.S. foreign aid and slash government departments.
This is an order creating and implementing the Department of Governmental Efficiency, known as DOGE.
Okay, that's a big one.
None of Trump's decisions have been authorized by Congress, prompting more than 40 lawsuits, including one by 19 states' attorneys general, who successfully sought an emergency order to stop Musk and DOGE from accessing federal computer systems containing Social Security numbers and banking details of Americans. The courts, the only checks and balances left on this government, say congressional Democrats.
And what we are witnessing is a constitutional crisis. We are seeing an executive branch that has decided that they are no longer going to abide by the Constitution in honoring Congress's role in the creation of the agencies, in their role in deciding where money is allocated.
But Vice President J.D. Vance suggested the courts can't hold Trump back either, posting on social media. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. President Trump agrees.
No judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
The question now, will the Trump administration do as the courts have ordered or defy them? Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Washington.
Here we have a live shot of Whistler Olympic Plaza, where it's going to be pretty chilly in the coming days. I'll have your full forecast coming up next. At the Super Bowl tonight, the Kansas City Chiefs' drive for 3 championships was not to be, as the Philadelphia Eagles handed them a drubbing.
It's coming. It's picked up. Hurts going deep. Has a man. He is caught.
In the end, the Eagles won 40-22. All right, it is time now to take a look at our forecast. Let's begin with a quick peek at the current temperatures around the province tonight. -28 in Chile and Fort St. John, quite foggy in Prince George with a -24 overnight. And in Kamloops, you're going to feel like -16 overnight, and on the island, a bit warmer with a -2 for Victoria. Heading into tomorrow, we are going to see some wind chills of about a feeling of a -20 in places like Howe Sound and Whistler. So just be prepared for that. In Prince George, -14 and sunny for tomorrow. Kamloops is going to see a -7 for tomorrow. And on the island, Victoria is sitting about a 2 with a mix of sun and clouds for tomorrow. And again, that Whistler, a -5, but it's going to feel closer to a -20 tomorrow. And heading into our 5-day forecast, lots of sun on the way, a mix of sun and clouds for us on our Monday and a high of 2, and that sun is going to stick around for the remainder of the week. A new 3D printer at the North Vancouver Library is giving kids a chance to get creative while teaching them about environmental responsibility.
Today we're running a program for youth for the first time where they all get to design some 3D models and then get them printed out. So they get to learn both about the design process and the 3D printing manufacturing process. It's really just a technology that lets people take a virtual design and turn it into a physical object.
It's been super popular. So we just launched this near the end of November, and we were running the printers pretty much full time.
A lot of parents who are seeing their kids get really excited and engaged by something.
I'm here with my daughter who is experiencing the 3D printing program. I think courses like this where you're building skills in the STEM areas are super in demand. It's just really nice to know that there's a place to go to start and try it. I think it's just sparked her imagination. It's like, how can I create this?
3D printing really attracts people. It's a bit magic for them how they can just have this object suddenly appear just for them.
We really try to encourage people to think about the lifespan of the object that's being printed.
This is a free program, and that's incredibly exciting. Libraries are such an important community resource, and this just allows learning and growing to be so accessible for many people.
That is your late news for Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Your next local news is on the early edition that starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Hope you have a great week.